Morning, Matt, Fred. Thanks very much for joining Blue Notes.
Morning, Andrew.
We've announced this morning the launch of Apple Pay at ANZ, the only bank to have Apple Pay in Australia. Apple Pay adds to a choice of payment options, really, including the really popular tap and go cards. So, Fred, what extra does Apple Pay bring to consumers?
Well, it makes it much more convenient to pay, really, both in store but also in app. And I guess we're also very proud here at ANZ being the only major bank to offer Apple Pay, now this week. And it is very convenient for our customers. It's roughly 70% of our ANZ Go Money customers have an Apple device, which is very pleasing for those customers. And it's going to be very convenient too, because you can now pay with your phone if you have any of your Visa cards, debit or credit, but also on an ANZ and Amex card. So it's very convenient, Andrew.
And Matt, is it a sort of big step forward, or is it this the sort of thing that consumers demand now? It's just got to be easier and better all the time? Or?
I think it's just part of the natural evolution. And so, I look at, if you Google any of the banks and put Apple Pay, and you can see there's clearly a demand from our customers, and customers have been asking for it here in Australia for quite a while. So does it really fundamentally change anything? No, probably not. But it is something that I think continues to move payments forward, and it actually is a pretty wonderful experience.
And ANZ, again, was a very early promoter of a mobile pay solution with Go Money. Are there things that you've learned from the Go Money rollout, Fred? Little tweaks that you have to do with mobile banking platforms and you may have to do with Apple Pay?
Well, I think this is a journey, so we learn all the time in the digital space and including the payment space. I think what we will have now with the Apple Pay solution, I guess one example of that, Andrew, would be that you just use Touch ID when you pay, which makes it very, very convenient, which is a solution that customers tell us that they want. And we have now learned how to develop that in the background too. So that's probably one example. But when it comes to digital and payments, I guess we want to be at the forefront. So we continue to learn in everything we develop.
Just to add on to Fred's point, I think one of the biggest things that we've learned through Go Money, through the internet banking refresh we've just had, and other things, is if you actually build something that's just simple, the uptake is really there, and I think this provides something like that. So as Fred talked about, you just hold the phone over the terminal, put your thumbprint over it, and it just works. So it's those types of simple, convenient things that remove that friction. And what you ultimately see is customers usually tend to adopt those without a lot of promotion.
Is security going to become a bigger and bigger issue now with online payments?
Customers remain security conscious, and I think rightly so. Apple Pay is safe though. You don't really store anything. You don't store anything on the phone at all. You share your card or your card details with the terminal or the merchant that you interact with. So it's as safe as a contactless card, and arguably even safer because you actually need your Touch ID to pay. So I think customers will remain security conscious, but I think this is as a good solution to anything that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think regardless of whatever's out there, security is always top of mind for customers, but particularly for banks. And I do think with the Touch ID, it provides, at least in the consumer's minds, that extra level of security and really having to use your thumbprint to authorize the transaction.
Yeah. Smartphones and this sort of technology, there's potential to do a huge amount, whether it's public transport or loyalty programs and things. Is that the next iteration, do you think, or will we see steps before then?
I think the ultimate solution, particularly if you're talking about replacing the true wallet, are things like identification and some of those key things. But there's no doubt you're seeing an expansion of what can be done, whether it's in banking or whatever it is, checking into flights. I'm sure if anyone was to look at their phone right now, they see many things that never existed a few years ago.
When you look at disruption and fintech technologies, a huge amount of it seems to be focused on payments, and you look at it like there is literally thousands of fintech disruptors in the payment space. Is that good for the consumer? I mean, it just strikes me it's going to become more and more complicated.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be more complicated. I think it's more choice. I think customers will now see, if it's through ANZ or any of the other banks here in Australia or overseas for that matter, I think it's just going to be more choice. I think the fintech industry and the fintech disruptors will add choice and probably convenience and ease for customers too. So I think ultimately it's good. It's good for the customer.
Well, look, it's a fascinating area, so thanks both for joining us on Blue Notes today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.